I told my dad, you had to sit down with him, after he paid for college and, the frat and my living and stuff like that. I had that conversation that he always wants to hear. Hey, Pops, I know I'm about to graduate, but here's what I really want to do is fight other dudes for free in a cage. I was coming off of the biggest win of my career against Chris Lieben in Vegas, and then I kind of feel like I got shafted. I mean, it might have been them giving me a lesser opponent, a guy that didn't have a name, but for me, it kind of seemed like they were sending me to fight a really tough up-and-comer in his backyard. I was able to eliminate the negative thoughts in my mind and kind of rebuild myself and be confident again. But with this last fight, I kind of got in my own head because I had a opponent change in like the last week or two.
Why'd you end up leaving the UFC?
They fired me.
What'd you do?
I lost 3 times in a row. I was making no money. I was living at home, and I was not yet even fighting, just training to be good enough to fight for free.
I think a lot of guys and gals, both, definitely both, are sort of in a state of turmoil these days.
Yeah.
Do you find that 10th Planet is doing something a lot more than just surface level?
Yeah, the benefits of training martial arts goes far beyond just skill and your physicality. That was like super full circle because I was 2022 and I graduated in 2008. So yeah, 14 years later, back in my old stomping grounds, teaching what I picked up when I was there. Paralysis by analysis still, affects me in other parts of life, and it's something that, the time to start is now.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. Tonight, sitting back with me, I have Andrew Craig, who is the head coach for all striking and MMA programs at 10th Planet Austin. He was born in Houston, Texas, and grew up playing a variety of sports, but didn't find jiu-jitsu until his first year at UT. He had his first amateur MMA fight in 2009 and went 4-0 before making his pro debut in 2010 and going 6-0 over the next 2 years. At the beginning of 2012, Andrew took a short notice fight in Australia to begin his career with the UFC. Andrew went on to fight 7 times in the UFC, earning a win over MMA pioneer Chris Lieben, recording a head kick KO still featured on UFC highlights and once received Fight of the Night honors. Following his professional fighting career, Andrew has helped coach at 10th Planet Austin since they first opened, with a focus on boxing supplemented by other striking arts. Andrew, thank you for being here tonight, and welcome to your episode on David's Saturday Night Sit Back.
Thanks for having me. That was quite the intro. I like the music and very well researched biography.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Like I said before we hit the mics, I got to be honest and say that I just stole it from the website, but they put together a very well done biography for you.
Well, then it was well read.
Thank you very much. You are one of my first guests, to my knowledge, that has rode a camel.
Yes. I don't think many people have, at least not in the desert of the Middle East, but I'm not anybody.
You're not anybody.
Correct. No, that was a good time riding camels. I had a fight in Abu Dhabi, and then we went to Dubai for a few days afterward. And my parents were really cool on a lot of these international fight trips. They would come along, and they would flip the bill for a little extracurricular activities after the fight. So, for instance, I fought in Sao Paulo, and afterward we went to Rio for about a week, and my parents hung out with us, and we went to all this cool, touristy stuff. And same thing for, Manchester. We went to London, and this one in Abu Dhabi, we went to Dubai. And my dad set up we went in these Mercedes G-Wagons and went through the sand dunes and stuff like that. And then we went from there to hopping on some camels and rode around. Then we saw like an eagle do its thing, or a hawk, whatever. Like the guy had the arm on, the sleeve on, and that sort of thing. And then our final destination, they cooked dinner for us, and we smoked hookah, and there was a belly dancer by the fire, and it was pretty sweet. And one of the best parts, though, was I had my own camel, but my best friend Irish and my cousin Travis had to share a camel. So it's kind of like, who's gonna be big spoon, who's gonna be little spoon.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
Sounds like a decent evening.
It was a good time. Yeah.
You've also been, I meant to look it up and I didn't get a chance. Is it called hang gliding when you have the triangle shaped thing on your back?
I think it's called hang gliding.
How was that?
That was intense. I've done skydiving, which was kind of neat, but skydiving, you jump out of the plane and you like getting spooned by this other dude, and you have maybe 5-10 seconds of free fall, which is pretty exhilarating. But after that, you pull the chute and you're just floating to the ground for 15-20 minutes. It's kind of slow. I kind of got nauseous because you kind of spinning in circles and stuff, and there's this just dude on your back the whole time. And so compared to hang gliding, which was, we were just hiking a mountain randomly. We hadn't planned to do this. We saw these guys on the side of the mountain doing it. Looked like a lot of fun. So we each get connected to like one of the guides or whatever, because you do it in the same hang gliding apparatus with a guy by your side. And he spoke no English, and I speak very little Portuguese, not even enough to, to articulate like what we should do, or, that I understood what he was saying. But basically we had to rehearse running at the same time until we eventually did it for real, while we're hooked to the hang glider, running off this cliff and just hoping like we were in unison to where when we jumped, we just, flew around. And we did, and we were in unison, and we had a great time. Flew around the beaches of Rio for a little bit. Then you land on the beach and you go get a coconut out of coconut water out of actual coconut. It was pretty epic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been skydiving. I have to admit, I forget about the guy on my back.
Yeah.
I think I'm just so, well, with the free fall, how can you even, like you would.
True.
I think, free falling is almost like getting in a, cold plunge, in the sense that it's one of those few moments in life that you're highly focused on one thing. You're not getting distracted by anything else, because you're either panicking about the fall or about your, adjusting your breath to get used to the temperature of the cold plunge. I don't know if you experienced this, maybe not, since you were feeling a little nauseous, but during that 15 to 20 minutes where you just sort of floating above Earth, I have never felt more at peace than when I'm just sort of suspended above the planet, looking down on it, and I feel like all my problems are sort of just being blown off me as I slowly go back to Earth. And then once you land, it's like, I don't know, man, I just feel like I can go about my day in the most peaceful, like meditative Zen type of mindset.
How many times have you done it?
7.
Okay. See, yeah, I feel like you've gotten through to this point where you like, it's super enjoyable for you now.
Yeah.
For me, it was kind of like a cross off the list. I didn't know how much I would like it, but I have like an early tendency to want to do things to like the already like, wingsuit jump and like do all sorts of crazy shit. So when I'm kind of held back in like the elementary version of it, I don't get as enticed as quickly. But I think it's cool you after doing it 7 times. That's kind of the feeling that we get. I guess, for us martial artists, for probably a lot of people, it's their workout. It's something challenging that like kind of releases those endorphins and gets you kind of set in your right path the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you way back in time with a picture.
Okay.
There's you.
Hey, that's me, man.
How old are you there, if you had to guess?
I was preschool. I don't know what age preschool is.
4?
4 or 5?
Yeah,
something like that.
Let's
yeah.
go with that. 4
okay.
and a half.
Nice.
You remember?
Where'd you find that?
On your Instagram.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I did some digging.
Yeah.
There's
Man, I was a cute kid.
I'm assuming this is either like a brother, a nephew. Who's that?
That's my older bro. Spraying him with the hose in the driveway. Never did much like washing cars, but spraying people with hoses, much more my speed.
You remember that day by chance?
No.
Probably a little too young.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? What comes to mind when you think of childhood?
Kind of just stress-free, a lot of happiness.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I talk about it pretty consistently. Like I feel very blessed to come up the way that I did, not really a care in the world, just, going to school, playing sports, good family life, all that jazz.
Yeah. You ever heard of a book called The Alter Ego?
No.
Do you listen to books? I do a lot of Audible. I don't stop and read as much as I should.
Yeah, sure.
Do you either read or listen to Audible too much?
I don't do much of either.
Fair.
Yeah.
All right. There's this book I read recently.
I always want my answer to that to be like, yeah, dude, I read 5 books last month. but it's not.
It's okay.
Okay.
You're a busy guy.
Yeah,
You're
that's
doing
fair.
some other stuff.
Yeah.
You're training the young men of Austin.
There we go.
There's this concept in it that all of us have some core drivers, and I'm going to read off the main ones that the book sort of focused on. And as I read through these, I wonder if any of these resonate with you. The core drivers are family, community, nation, religion, race, gender, identifiable group, idea, or cause.
I was on board with the first few and the last couple.
So probably family, community, idea, and cause.
Yeah, I think those 5 resonate the most.
What about talk about community to me, because that's a big one that I don't think we have enough of these days.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm very fortunate that I've got multiple communities or friend groups, as you might say. You know, I've got a text chain with a bunch of my college buddies that's, probably going on 15 years now. Still play a fantasy football league with a bunch of my high school buddies. One of those guys I've known since kindergarten. Through all the martial arts, I've got a good, a community there amongst the team and the guys I train with, the other coaches, that sort of thing. And then I also work at my other job where I work for Tim Kennedy. There's a big community there, all based. There's a good big community around causes that I like, which is just looking out for the fellow man to protect and preserve human life, just kind of self-reliance and helping others out.
What about idea?
Probably, yeah, the idea that we're all bound for something big. We can all be great. The idea that it's important that the people that you surround yourself with most often are also trying to be great as well.
Yeah. I have one more picture for you. Let me pull it up here real quick. Let's go with this one. All right, so here's one more of you.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
What do you recall what year this may have been? Circa?
Yeah, that was 20. The picture was from a fight in 2014, and the announcement was for a fight in 2015. That fight never happened. I got a new opponent about 2 weeks before the fight, who I'd argue was a much tougher opponent than that guy that I posted about.
What do you think when you look at that picture? And then we have, this picture that I showed you earlier. Yeah. What parts of you stayed the same? What parts of Andrew Craig changed?
Man, I've always been a fierce competitor, and I've always liked physical, contact sports. Man, for me, they're the exact same person. It's like a fun-loving, joyous kid who found passion in doing something. Teetering on the crazy side of things, slightly violent. But I always came back to being that kid, as soon as I step out of the cage.
Yeah. So you went to school at University of Texas.
Correct.
Majored in corporate communications.
Oh, yeah.
And at what point did you abandon that
very
wonderful, exciting route of going into corporate communications?
It's a good question. So, college was just kind of like a thing that you did after high school for me. Everybody that I was around, my peer groups, my older brother, everybody, they just went to college, right? That was the next thing that you did, and you would get your degree and find a good job after that. And so I was kind of going that route. But I guess I always felt a little not connected to that idea. And as soon as I found martial arts, I figured that there was something that I could put my mind to, aside from going to classes and studying and getting good grades, that I could excel at. And I had a belief early on, even when I sucked and didn't know what I was doing with it, that I could do something with it, or that at least I owed it to myself to try. So the rest of college was just kind of finishing it up. So I could go try this thing. I felt kind of obligated to do the thing, get a degree, kind of also in case I ended up being totally delusional and sucked at the thing, at least I would have a degree.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you graduate, and at that point decided to just go full-fledged into MMA and jiu-jitsu and...
Yeah, big time. I told my dad, had to sit down with him, after he paid for college and, the frat and my living and stuff like that. I had that conversation that he always wants to hear. Hey, Pops, I know I'm about to graduate, but here's what I really want to do is fight other dudes for free in a cage. And so he was surprisingly really cool about it. He kind of knew the limitations of my lifestyle. So he said, hey, you're not going to make any money. Get another job. You can't just train all day. You can live with me and chase this thing for a while. So I did. And like you said, I rattled off 4 wins. I was like, oh, maybe I'll go pro. Maybe just see how that goes too. Because it was always supposed to be one fight. I got to do one. I owe it to myself to try one. And then after one, I was hooked and I couldn't stop, off of a win. And I wanted to take it as far as I could, which I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, many blessings. Got very fortunate with my dad's reaction in that situation as well.
When you started accumulating those wins, I feel like all of us have ego, and ego goes one of 2 directions. It either goes the confidence route or it goes the sort of like the cockiness, arrogant route. Did you see your ego going in either of those directions as you started to get those wins?
I think for the most part, it stayed just confident, at least, when it came to fighting. I'm sure I got a little cocky on the outside of, I was like 27 and I thought I was hot shit, so I'm sure there were a few years there where a few people met me and were like, it's not my guy, but maybe not, maybe I'm being too critical. I think I kept it together pretty well, stayed pretty humble. I think if anything I do really well is kind of stay humble because I know how quickly, you can lose a fight or how quickly life can change on a dime. So I kind of always think about that. And I don't think I got too big for my britches during that run.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that Australia trip that you went on.
Epic. Australia's awesome. If you have the money though, I would always fly like business class or something like that. Because those flights, when you're sitting in one of those seats, like, sandwiched between 2 people, and it's, 13 hours or something like that. It can get rough, man. So the fight was in Sydney. Sydney's a really cool town. We stayed at this cool hotel that was a part casino as well. And there's a lot of Asian tourists in Australia. So that's kind of like one of my memories was a bunch of games that I've never seen in casinos played by like, the biggest population of Asian that I've ever been around. And then just everybody in Australia is kind of like, they're kind of like sly. They're kind of, they got like a dry humor. So like before the fight, we go to a restaurant and I go to the bar cause I'm like thirsty doing, weigh in soon or whatever like that. And I ask for a water and the bartender goes, yeah, all right, mate. What do you really have? I'm like, I just wanted a water, buddy.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, it was good, man. So Australia was went to the zoo in Australia. Man, zoos in Australia are different than around here. They had everything. They had like the biggest crocodile I've ever seen, a bunch of animals I had never even heard of. That was a good experience. Met Seal, the singer, Kissed by a Rose. Not that friendly of a guy. And won my fight. The fights were crazy. So they air the fights in America on Friday night. But to do that, they had to take place Saturday morning. So I had my first fight in the UFC at 10 a.m. On a Saturday morning in Australia, which was actually great because that's a pretty common practice time. You wake up like 8, you have like a little breakfast or maybe go into it fasted, then you're sparring by 10 a.m. It was great, man. Won the fight, had the rest of the day to chill or go, explore or whatever. We went to Bondi Beach our last day there, which is a super beautiful beach. Walked around for a while, got super sunburned. Saw a few guys while I was walking. It was Jake Shields and Court McGee. And I was like, oh, what's up, guys? You guys stay one extra day too? Because I thought I was being kind of slick using like taking my flight out like one day after my fight. And they were like, yeah, no, we're here for like 2 more weeks. Then we're going to New Zealand to trout fish. And then we're going to like Thailand after that. I go, oh. But, to be fair, I didn't know if I was going to be broke after the fight or have, a fair amount of money. So I didn't want to extend too far.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fair. Has there been any fight where for one reason or another it got in your head before the fight that you got anxious for, just fell off, didn't feel prepared, anything like that?
Yeah.
What were sort of the circumstances around that one?
This one against Luke Barnett, I was coming off of the biggest win of my career against Chris Lieben in Vegas, and then I kind of feel like I got shafted by getting sent across the pond again instead of doing another like a Houston fight or something, in America again. I got set to fight a guy who didn't really have much of a name yet. So, I mean, it might have been them giving me a lesser opponent, a guy that didn't have a name. But for me, it kind of seemed like they were sending me to fight a really tough up-and-comer in his backyard. He's from Manchester. The fight was in Manchester. So he was also 6'6". I never fought anybody that tall, and it was hard to find sparring partners that were that tall as well, especially that tall and that skilled.
Yeah.
So training camp was a little rough. I think I had a messed up rib in training camp, so I was a little off on my preparation. And and at a certain point, just walking out there, I didn't feel like as confident as I should have been. Hard to find that flow state, and then got anxious and made a mistake. Yeah.
What was the mistake?
The mistake was I had been messing around with a lead leg, like a leg lift, and then coming in like a right hand or a takedown or something like that. I forgot what the exact move I was going to do off of it was, but in order to do a move, you got to set it up, right? If I want to do a leg raise, I've got to throw some left kicks first. I can't just do it off of a nothing, right? And I don't think I threw any left kicks. And then I was like, time for the leg raise. And I did it. I was like, oh shit, he's not biting on it because I haven't made him think a certain way. So I lifted the leg, got smacked with the right hand, dropped. He thought he knocked me out twice in that fight. 2 times he dropped me and it was like, that guy's done. Put his hands up and I was like, I'm still here. And I think he dropped me in the first round maybe. And then in between rounds, I don't really remember, but Irish told me, my buddy, he was just throwing water in my face, trying to wake me up. And then round 2 comes out and I move around a little bit. And then at that point, man, my jaw was too weak. And I went for something and he hit me again. And that just kind of dropped me one more time. Then he got on top and choked me out.
How tall are you?
6'1".
6'1".
Yeah.
I guessed a little taller.
I'm lanky. I'm all limbs.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your mindset after that fight for either the next couple days or weeks?
I was pretty bummed, man, because right after that Lieben fight, my dog had died, and so that was a huge bummer. And then so kind of going into that next fight camp without the dog kind of felt a little weird, Yeah. And so, and then kind of just feeling like I got, not disrespected, but like, okay, they're not giving me like something that should come after a Lieben fight. Not taking anything away from the dude, because the dude is arguably a tougher fight than anybody that I had in the UFC. He was really good. But so, yeah, I think I went into the after that Barnett fight, I actually went into my next fight. I got booked against a super tough Brazilian, and those all pre-USADA, so pre-drug testing. And this guy is just juicy as hell. And I went into that fight feeling pretty confident. I started going to a boxing gym. I was in excellent shape, no injuries. I just came in and put on a performance where I really I turned it on a little too late because I was trying to play a little too cautious, which is kind of what kind of happens, You play a little too fast and lose with one fight, and you lose a certain way. So you play a little too cautious at the next fight and lose a different way, lose by decision instead of, going for it and getting caught.
Yeah.
So that was a tough one. Then I had my third fight, my 7th UFC fight after that, which turned to my 3rd loss in a row. And that one was one more, man. I was going in super I was able to eliminate the negative thoughts in my mind and kind of rebuild myself and be confident again. But with this last fight, I kind of got in my own head because I had a opponent change in like the last week or two, and it turned into a way tougher opponent who I'd seen just dismantle a lot of guys, so that kind of got in my head going into that fight.
What do you call the people that you train now? Do you call them clients, students? What term do you like to use?
I just call them my fighters.
Your fighters.
Yeah, my guys.
When you're working with your fighters now, how much of the job is training them physically versus helping them through mental stuff and helping them in that aspect of things?
I think through solid physical training and just reinforcing the fact that they're doing all the right things. They're training just as good as anybody else, and they got the best stuff, out there. They got high-level coaches, a great facility. They're doing all the right things. That's really as much as I try to get in their heads mentally. I just try to keep them confident and let them know that they're making all the right moves.
All right.
Yeah.
When those seconds before you get into a ring, as you're walking in, the music's playing, people are shouting, what's going through your head in like those 10 to 30 seconds?
That's a wild time. And it changes too based on like how I read books about flow state. I studied flow state a little bit. I could never find a way to get there on my own, right? But there were certain fights where you just came out and you felt so good. My fight in Vegas against Chris Lieben, I came out to give it away by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and like I just felt so you know what else, man? When the arena is super packed, that goes a long way.
Yeah,
a long way, because I've come out to other arenas where I'm, more the early fight on the card, and you don't feel as good then. Like you're walking out to your music, but there's not a whole lot of sound behind that. You want to hear your music and, the screams and shouts of thousands of people. And if you don't, and you've heard that before, it can kind of be unnerving.
Yeah. Is there anything that feeling is comparable to?
Not that I found.
Not that you've
Yeah.
Why'd you end up leaving the UFC?
They fired me.
What'd you do?
I lost 3 times in a row. Yeah.
Does that get you across the board? Anyone loses 3 fights in a row,
dude,
you get cut?
You could get cut off of a win if they don't like how you perform. Elias Theodoro, this really good Canadian 185er, actually died really early from cancer. But yeah, he got cut off of a win. Some guys get cut off of 1 loss, 2 losses. I'm fortunate to get 3, actually. There are other guys in there that've kind of been in this game for longer, have been in the UFC for longer, that will be afforded, 4, 5, 6, but those are few and far between.
Yeah. Fast forwarding a little bit, I want to read a quote from you from your own Instagram page.
Oh, no.
Do you remember what happened on August 19th, 2018?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought as soon as I said that date, you would know. All right, let me read this to you. Let me make sure it's the right one. Yes, it is. This post deserves to be read. 13 years later, I have my black belt. Forever grateful to Team Took for inspiring me to try jiu-jitsu. Started with Travis in my Uncle Pat's garage in 2005, which eventually led me to pursue MMA. That snowballed into 17 fights and stops all over the globe. Travis was in my corner for all those fights and on all those painfully long flights as well. There have been glorious wins and heartbreaking losses, but still not much compares to getting my black belt from him in the presence of so many great friends from the jiu-jitsu community, as well as my parents, and to all the other great coaches, friends, and trainers that have gotten me here.
Wow. What's the date on that? August 18th, 2019?
You flipped it. August 19th. Or maybe I flipped it when I typed it. August 19th, 2018.
Remember that. Cool. I've got like friends that are like, oh yeah, I got my black belt. And I'm like, I don't remember. So it's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't even believe I wrote that. Yeah.
What went through your head when I read your own words to you?
I usually don't get very thoughtful on social media, and if I did, I was really feeling it. So clearly, I was touched that I was given a black belt by my cousin, who I have immense respect for. I still remember, because all of a sudden they're giving me my black belt, and I go up there and I look up and I see my parents. I'm like, what the hell? Why are my parents here? And then I was like, oh, I'm getting my black belt. And then it became it was like it was just like being, I don't know, like it reminded me of my surprise birthday party where everybody knew what was going on, but I didn't. And I'm looking around like an idiot. And anyway, I go up there and I got a little teary eyed because I was, so moved, but cool. Yeah. Glad you looked that up.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
so clearly after we knew this from your intro, but getting fired from the UFC didn't deter you. You're determined to stay in this space in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, too obsessed with it. I can't imagine my life without it. It's kind of like what I do, I enjoy going to the gym. I enjoy that kind of working out more than other types of working out as well. And I'm very regardless of what Mary says, because she kind of looks at me as a lazy bones compared to her. But I gotta break some sweats. I gotta get after it fairly often, and so martial arts is the perfect vehicle to do that. And coaching kind of kept me in it that way. And I didn't have big plans on coaching the next generation. I had always kind of talked about it, but it kind of eventually just happened. It was kind of I stayed at something for long enough. And so, even when I got fired from the UFC, I was coaching almost immediately and still training. I had tried to make a couple of jumps back to getting a fight, but I was always fighting injuries and stuff like that. So yeah, I had to stay in it just for pure love of the game.
Yeah. Did you pivot to 10th Planet, or was it as soon as the UFC was over? When did that partnership happen?
So that was as soon as the UFC was over. Aubrey Marcus, the founder of On It, really threw me a bone and said, hey, because he was a big part of my last camp as far as kind of like the mindset of things. On It was sponsoring me. He was really helping me out. And so after the fight, I mean, he knew that I was like kind of, for lack of a better word, fucked as far as jobs. And, it's tough to go back for fighting for like $2,000 or something like that and build your way back up. And so he gave me a job at On It. Initially, I was going to be working on some events and stuff like that, which we quickly learned I had no business doing that. Now I'm pretty good at it because I've had a lot of job experience. But at the time, they had just this girl that was working in customer service who was a yoga teacher who was working with all the sponsored athletes from On It. And they would go, oh, let's have the ex-fighter guy work with all of our athletes. So I found myself working as kind of like the athlete brand manager, sponsoring different fighters. I kind of branched out into, sponsoring Muay Thai fighters, boxers. Like we had Tiffany Van Soos as a sponsored athlete when she won the Glory kickboxing title. We had the On It logo on Errol Spence's trunks for a couple of his, huge fights. Let's see who else do we have. We had Ogden Topic. We had Corey LaJoy, a NASCAR driver. Scott Stallings. He was kind of the fittest guy on the PGA Tour for a while. We had Cowboy Cerrone, Cody Garbrandt. We had a bunch of big names that were flying the On It umbrella that I was behind. Actually, one of my coolest moments, just trying to get the On It brand out there, was during the lead up to the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather boxing match. What I found was we couldn't afford a lot of these athletes, but I could definitely afford to give their coaches and trainers free shit, and hope that shit pops up in, bigger content, bigger media, which is exactly what happened. I had Conor McGregor's nutritionist wearing an On It t-shirt on stage at the McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather press conference, and he had On It up there, and it was pretty sweet. It was a pretty sneaky move to get On It up there for free. So anyway, I was working for On It. On It wanted to have their own martial arts program, and so they were kind of connected to Eddie Bravo, who runs 10th Planet, the founder of 10th Planet, and they were connected to him via Joe Rogan, and they were also connected to Dwayne Ludwig, trainer of TJ Dillashaw. They were connected to Dwayne via TJ. So anyway, maybe Dwayne was already a sponsored guy. So anyway, Dwayne referred his one of his top-ranked dudes who's out in LA at the time, and Eddie Bravo referred his top-ranked dude who's also in LA, and they both came and started 10th Planet Austin, one leading the kickboxing side and one leading the jiu-jitsu side. And I was a natural fit-in to kind of help out on either side. So I've just been I started out as a very loose part of it because I was kind of disenfranchised with martial arts. I was kind of done at the time, but I eventually found my way creeping in there a little bit more and teaching, and now I'm, one of the main guys.
We'll come back to coaching and 10th Planet in a second. I have to ask you something real quick.
Yeah.
In college, one of my first jobs was working at a gym. I absolutely loved it. Like, it didn't pay that well, but it was just a fun job. You worked at 24 Hour Fitness for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I heard you saying, like, you hate it.
I
Fucking
hated
terrible
it, dude.
experience.
Awful.
What were you doing for them? How did we have this opposite?
I was a personal trainer making like $12 an hour. And I think that was my biggest complaint. I was like taking these guys through these badass, 1 hour workouts. I was getting some of the stuff from, the strength and conditioning I was doing with some high level professionals, and I was taking it back to 24 Hour Fitness and doing these big sessions. I think the people are paying, maybe $70 to $100 for the sessions. I'm getting 12. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the hours either. 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, stuff like that. That was just a rougher part of my life, honestly, because I was making no money. I was living at home, and I was not yet even fighting, just training to be good enough to fight for free. And so I think I saw a lot of my friends that had just graduated, got jobs right off the bat. You know, they're making, a salary and not back living at home, having a good time. And I kind of removed myself from a lot of that stuff to chase the fighting thing.
Yeah. That sucks that they paid so little.
Yeah. Well, I took a course and I think I bumped that up to like $14.50.
Oh,
yeah.
But the cost per session was what? Probably like 60?
At least.
So 24 was just recouping 45 of that for themselves.
Right.
Dirty.
Dirty.
All right. That's fair. When you first got into fighting around the same time that you had that conversation with your dad, who would have been one of the bigger names in that industry at the time?
For my weight class, it was Anderson Silva.
Anderson Silva.
Yeah, he was the man.
I think a lot of new podcasters, new fighters, whether it's naturally as humans or maybe something that we were trained as when we were children, we have this, we start comparing ourselves to others. Did you ever, and people who we shouldn't, it doesn't even make any logical sense. Like, why would you compare yourself to Anderson Silva? Did you ever have that issue?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like the thief of joy, right? But that's all fighters do, I think.
Really?
It's compared because they're like, oh, that guy's got a good right hand. How good is my right hand? Oh, his guard game better than? It's like always like a piece of their game. Is that better than my game? How does it stack up against my game? If we win against each other, do enough pieces of my game outdo the stuff that he does well? Can I beat him in a fight? Because that's all. I mean, there's a lot of comparison in fighting, I think.
How do you think about other fighters in terms of like, do you see them as like we're both doing the same thing and we just have to do it against each other for the next couple of minutes? Do you see them as enemies? Do you see them as friends? Like what's those dynamics like?
They're colleagues, they're your peers, I guess. I've never had bad blood before or after a fight. I've always, all my fights has been for the most part pretty friendly before. And if it wasn't friendly, it wasn't like full of trash talk or anything like that. It was just, a couple Brazilians, they mean mug and they don't speak English and you're not going to, chop it up with them beforehand and maybe not after either. And that was about as, non-sportsman as it got for me. I'd never had experienced, actually, my second UFC fight, a guy was totally cool before the fight, after the fight, great guy. During the fight, he's talking shit to me. He's like putting his chin out and doing this and like then kicking me and yelling at me and stuff like that. And I ended up winning that fight, so it didn't bother me at this point. But I'm sure if I had lost that fight, that would have really stuck with me.
Yeah, I don't think anyone likes getting taunted.
No, nobody likes getting taunted. Yeah. No. Very good observation.
Stop the madness with that one. When you first started coaching, how did you step into that role? Was it a pretty natural transition for you, or was it sort of rough to make that move?
I started coaching really early on. My whole goal was to stop doing personal training and go straight to coaching. And my cousin was, he needed some guys to help coach, especially some of the striking stuff where he didn't always have consistent help. And I basically had to get good enough at martial arts to where I could convince my cousin to let me coach and pay me for it. And I eventually did. And then I eventually was coaching more than I would have liked to. And eventually I got to a point in the UFC where I was like, I'm making enough money from this. I'm done coaching. And in hindsight, and I tell this to my guys, I think it would have been very advantageous to continue coaching just on a smaller capacity, 2-3 classes a week, just to stay engaged in the sport. I think your technique improves, your understanding of the technique if you have to explain it, if you have to teach it to people. And I feel like I missed a step there by discontinuing coaching when I could have lightened the load a little bit. My thing was I was kind of getting so burnt out from martial arts and fighting because I had just really solely focused on that for so many years, been like, blinders on.
Yeah.
I think if I had pulled back, not all the way, just a little bit and kept on coaching a little bit, that would have been good for me in my career.
I'm going to assume that you look at your job now as more than just a paycheck.
Yeah, it's a small paycheck, so it's not really my main form of income, but it's, where my passion is. And I coach my guys in a way where, kind of like we were talking about earlier, the mental side of things, a lot of what I am good at relaying to them now is what not to do. Because, what are they always, you learn more from your mistakes than your wins, or more from your losses than your wins. And that's certainly true for me, both in, being in the actual cage, as well as the steps leading up to preparation for a fight.
If this is too personal, we can cut it out or whatever, but how old is your youngest fighter that's training under you right now?
Pretty young, dude. These guys are born in 2005 and stuff now. It's hilarious. I made like some, 90s reference or something, some joke that nobody laughed at. And I go to my guys, I'm like, this is a problem. All y'all born in the 90s, you don't get any of my jokes. And then like 3 of them put their hand up, Coach 2001, Coach 2003. I'm like, geez, these guys are young, man.
What are these young guys wandering into 10th Planet for? What's their drive, do you think?
A lot of them at this point, they just want to get good at martial arts. They're obsessed with the sport and they think they can be fighters. It's not as much of like, oh, I just wanted to learn jiu-jitsu and now I'm a fighter. There's certainly less of that than just the guys coming in knowing that they want to have a fight at some point.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how to frame this. Something that comes up a lot on the show is just sort of like the state of like Gen Z and beyond. And what was that?
That's just,
just saying hi.
Love you, baby. Yeah.
Do you see your role as, I don't know why I'm having trouble wording this tonight. Usually this question flows pretty easily.
That's okay.
I think a lot of guys and gals, definitely both, are sort of in a state of turmoil these days. Do you find that 10th Planet is doing something a lot more than just surface level? It's not just a place for them to exercise. It's not just a place for them to learn MMA or jiu-jitsu or whatever the form of fighting is. Is it doing something more for our community, or Austin, or any town that has a gym similar to 10th Planet?
Yeah, the benefits of training martial arts goes far beyond just skill and your physicality. This is a great question, and like it's a very big question. So for me, I need that push, that release of exerting myself physically, doing it in a way where it's not just lifting a weight, but you're trying to accomplish this goal of actually getting to a position and getting like a win over somebody else. Makes it much more fun for me. The community that is there, being able to like go to this gym that you enjoy going to, is going to be a great escape, a great release for anybody, to get out of your house, to get away from the office, to go to this place where all your friends are and you're playing your favorite game. And then once you're done, y'all bullshit for like 30 minutes and you're out and you feel good the rest of the day. Kind of that thing that you were talking about earlier, right? After going skydiving. And then if you have a group of people that are like that are feeling better every day, they're more physically fit, they're more capable to defend themselves. And oftentimes when people are given those tools to defend themselves, they feel very secure. And so they're going to act better as well, right? They're going to more than likely stick up for the small guy and more than likely not be a total dick. Now, that's not true of everybody that's in martial arts. A lot of time you say, oh, dude, he's a black belt, he's got life figured out. That is not the case by any stretch of the imagination. But I would say for the most part, I think you're going to get a healthier population, and hopefully that extends into the community, and hopefully you get like a force multiplier by setting up more gyms and getting more people involved in martial arts.
That's a good answer.
Thank you, dude. Thank you.
I had a friend probably about a year and a half ago. I don't think it was 10th Planet, but maybe it was. The conversation was so long ago, but I remember he told me he was going to we work out at Gold's together, and he told me he was going to disappear for a little bit just because he was sort of getting bored with his workouts. And he mentioned exactly one thing you just said, I'm here by myself, I'm not really engaging with anyone. And sure enough, he was off to some sort of MMA or jiu-jitsu or type mixed martial arts, something or whether. And part of what he said that I wasn't expecting was he said, I'm not anticipating in getting any fights, but I want to know that if I was with my friends and some sort of danger was present, I could do something about it, because right now I don't feel like I could do anything. And I'd never heard someone say that before, and it was just a very interesting thought.
It's a very honest answer, right?
Yeah.
And for me, And by no means am I judging anybody, but I feel the necessity to feel, maybe because maybe I'm a little more skittish than other people, maybe I'm just like cynical and I think everybody's coming after me, but I like this feeling of knowing I can handle myself and hopefully handle, for everybody else that, that I'm with, to protect those that are around me, to protect those that I love.
Yeah. What's in the future for you?
Man, I would like to, we've got a busy into 2024 with a lot of fights coming up. I hope that by 2025, we have some of these guys that are creeping into the big show or getting closer to the big show. We'll have guys, some of my top amateurs will be turning pro. Some of my guys that have not had an amateur debut yet will be, starting their fight careers. So that's in the very near future. That's it, man. Yeah.
There is one
eye on the prize.
First off, hell yeah. I'm very excited for all of your fighters and for yourself to be able to see that happen. And
thank you.
That's going to be good. There is one event in particular that came up probably 6, 7, 8, 9 times on your Instagram. So I just wanted to ask you about it because it was the only one that kept coming up. The On It World Open Jiu-Jitsu Tournament.
Okay.
Yeah. That's something I'm going to assume you're pretty excited about every year.
No. Okay. So that's funny.
He says no.
Wait. So the reason that probably are you talking about like on my Instagram?
Well,
that's
because
like all over that.
It's the only event that you annually you made sure that you were doing a little advertising for it. So I was like, man,
let me go back a little bit, okay?
Yes.
So a couple of the other things that we did, so originally I got hired to do these events. It wasn't equipped for them. Eventually, I ended up finding myself doing all these events On It. So myself and 10th Planet Austin owner Curtis Himbroff end up running a couple of shows. One we would call the On It Invitational, and we would do it in the back of the gym where we just had a sports court down and jiu-jitsu mats. And we would stuff that thing with a couple hundred people, and some of the best grapplers in the world would come from all over and do these small, intimate tournaments in this small room with some big name commentators. We had Fighter and the Kid there one year. We had Jason Ellis. We had maybe Michelle Water. We had a bunch of fight names come and commentate that tournament for us. And so the On It World Open ended up being our vehicle into the On It Invitational ended up getting us to the On It World Open. We ended up doing some event at maybe it's like the Naturally Fit Games or something like that. And so we wanted to do a tournament so the On It Invitational is invite only. Mm-hmm. We wanted to do a tournament for the people, and then the winner from that will get an automatic invite to the Invitational. And so we did that tournament as well. And I only posted about it just because we were trying to sell tickets and get registration and stuff like that. I did not enjoy doing it. Curtis and I had to drive all around Texas with a U-Haul and gather like hundreds of heavy zebra mats from all over these gyms. So that was a total pain in the ass. Didn't enjoy it. The whole tournament was totally stressful. No, not my thing. I might actually go back and delete those posts.
Now that I'm reminding you, now that I've audited your page for you. That's hilarious. Do you like the commentating side of things?
I love it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
You have a really good voice for it.
Thank you.
I could see you doing something if you brought up like another, because I'm sure you have just nothing but time on your hands.
Right, exactly.
If you end up doing some sort of podcast, radio, serious commentating, I think a lot of people, someone just told me recently the reason they listen to their favorite podcast is because they like the host's voice.
Really?
I've never heard a human say that before.
Okay, well, thank you for the compliment. That kind of gives me some juice to do something maybe. I've done a lot of commentary, which I really enjoy, but I've never stuck a recurring gig, that's paying me. Yeah. Maybe someday. Podcast has always been tossed around, but I've always just enjoyed going on other people's.
Yeah, it's a grind too. And it's definitely a long game. If you're not a celebrity or someone who already has that recognition from the concerts that you've played, the movies you've been in, whatever the thing is, it's definitely a slow game. But, for me, man, I just am honored to have anyone that's willing to come over and shoot the shit with me for a little bit. And even if no one listens to this, which they will, we're in the top 5% of podcasts listened to globally now. So we're making strides.
All right.
Appreciate that, brother.
Yeah.
But even if no one was listening, man, like this was just such a fun time tonight, you know? So I think if you, that's a huge part of it is you just got to enjoy it. If you're doing it only for the money, only for the attention, there's some other thing, you're probably going to weed yourself out of the podcasting realm. And that's probably true of almost anything in life.
Absolutely. Well, you see so many people like, let's start a podcast, and then they, you know, are really quick and they're hot on it, and they release 3 episodes and then they take a 3-month break or something. They're like, no, we got to get it. Like what you're doing, man, you got it set up here. You're busting them out. You've got some, are you a big Hot Ones fan?
I know of it. Yeah, I've watched a few episodes.
Okay, check out that host right there. You got some Sean Evans level preparation, which is very much appreciated. And it's always cool bringing up something that I was like, had, you know, left my mind completely, which is I think a really cool thing that a host can do to kind of bring their guests back to some moment in time that they've kind of forgotten about.
Dude, I want to transport you. I want you to forget that the rest of the globe is spinning, and for the hour that you're here and we got these headphones on, we're just in a podcast land.
Yeah, dude, you nailed it. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to do it one more time. I got one more post from your grandma I want to read to you.
Okay.
This one is from November 15th, 2022, and you titled it Full Circle. From first becoming obsessed with MMA while at UT, but only dabbling in training, to graduating in 2008 with no desire to do anything but fight, competing as an amateur in 2009, went pro in 2010, UFC 2012 to 2015, getting cut/fired, then found a home training and teaching at 10 Planet ATX, and now back to UT Austin, Texas to share what I've learned along this journey to this awesome group's at Heel Hook'em. Thanks, the only tripped, for helping me out. And did I mention you look like a natural with your horns up?
Okay, that's another good one, man, because so that was the UT Jiu-Jitsu Club, which when I was at school there was no UT Jiu-Jitsu Club, there was no wrestling club, there was nothing like that. But that little area that they're in is this matted area that was right next door to the weight room at the Rec, which is down by the stadium. It was the further gym, but it was less busy, so we would go to that one. But I always just found myself kind of going next door to the mat room because they had a speed bag and they had a heavy bag, and I would hit the shit out of those even though I didn't know what I was doing. The speed bag's a little easier to figure out than a heavy bag. And years later they hit me up, and because I'll still say I'm the only UT graduate to go to the UFC, at least to my knowledge. I don't know.
Really?
Check that. And yeah, so anyway, they had me in for a seminar. Actually, that reminds me, they hit me up. I forgot to hit them back. They want me in for another one. Not surprised. Yeah. So anyway, that was a cool moment. That was like super full circle because that was 2022 and I graduated in 2008. So yeah, 14 years later, back in my old stomping grounds, teaching what I picked up when I was there.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That must have been a cool moment for you. When I first said the date, did you have an inclination as to what I was going to read on that one?
No, I don't have no concept of time anymore.
I will say COVID really threw us off.
It really did.
I can't remember what happened in 2021 versus I remember 2020 a little bit better because that was when everything, all the craziness was at its height, it felt like. But after that, the last four or 5 years have just felt like a blur.
Yeah. How old are you?
37.
Okay, yeah, I'm 38. Yeah, I feel like as I get older too, it kind of just like, oof, gotta start writing some stuff down.
Yeah.
Or just put it on Instagram. And
or put it on Instagram. Yeah, it's a good place to store things.
Yeah, big time.
So let me ask you one last question before we end this thing. Actually, 2 more. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't touch on?
No. Nothing I can think of.
All right. Let's say there's someone listening who is younger than us, significantly younger than us. Think a teenager, maybe they're done with high school, maybe in college, and they're listening to this podcast, and for one reason or another, they hit play tonight, and they just got to hear an hour of this super happy dude who's had a pretty good trajectory, put in a lot of hard work, and they just feel like there's something missing from their lives, that they're just they're lost, they're wandering, maybe even on the outside, they're doing a great job at making it seem like they have this great life, but inside, they just feel like it's a whirlwind and they have no idea what direction to go next. If you could look into this camera actually, and talk to that person right now for 60 seconds or so, what advice would you tell them? Okay,
I got 2 things. Find that community and make sure it's good people, and they will help raise you up. Even if they aren't ones giving you advice, you will learn from other people doing good, striving, going for their goals and stuff like that. The other thing would be is if there is that crazy thing that you want to do, assuming it's a positive thing for the world and you're trying to make good, go for it. There's, take me as an example. I had no business being, in the world's biggest fighting organization, in the amount of time that I did, but hard work pays off and you can make it happen too. I know that's so cliche, but it's the truth, man. Dreams are very achievable.
I don't know if you ever felt like this in anything, from the coaching, the fighting, the whatnot, but my getting the podcast started probably was delayed by about a year longer than it needed to be, because I was looking for all those answers. I want to know, like, who's the guest going to be? What's the name of the podcast going to be? Eventually, I just started recording. And I do think that to a certain extent, the timing was perfect. I think I'm not kicking myself over thinking on it for that year. I think it gave me a little bit more time to mature and whatnot. But I do think I fell trapped to that analysis paralysis a little bit of just overcomplicating it, when it's really simple. Buy 2 mics and start talking.
I know that so well. We talk about that all the time because, for as well as it did in fighting, that paralysis by analysis still, affects me in other parts of life. And it's something that, the time to start is now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. You want to wrap this thing up?
Let's do it.
Well, Andrew Craig, thank you so much for being here. Mary, thank you for coming along as well. It was nice having someone on in the background. To the audience, you guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. If you would do me a huge favor, which will only take about 3 minutes of your time, and it will cost you no money at all, go to Spotify, give the podcast 5 stars there. Go to Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars there as well. And then go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. And I'm asking you to do this for 2 reasons. One, I want this episode to speak to whatever person that Andrew spoke to at the end of the episode. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they are. So I need your help making this thing spread so we can reach them. And 2, if you do this for me, I promise you I will continue looking to find guests like Andrew and building this thing as big as I can for you guys. So please go do those things for me and for your community. Stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll see you guys next Saturday on DSNSB. Bye, everyone.